Welcome back to Art Appreciation. This is Chapter 1, The Power of Art. More than 8 million people enter the Louvre Museum in Paris each year, making it the world's most visited museum. It is estimated that the museum generates the equivalent of nearly $1 billion in annual revenue for France. Although the huge palace contains hundreds of thousands of objects, many, if not most, visitors come to see the world's most famous painting in the world, Leonardo da Vinci's Mona Lisa. Signs are posted throughout the vast museum, marking the way to its legendary masterpiece. Outside the room where the painting hangs, there is often a long line just to enter and join the crush of the crowd. Inside, there are many other paintings by some of the most talented artists in history, but viewers surround only one, jostling each other, pushing toward it to get a better look. Above the crowd, one can see arms lifting cell phones and cameras and flashes going off. Tourists treat the painting like a famous landmark, posing for their pictures beside it. Guards are always nearby, and wooden barriers keep the viewers at a distance. Deeper than a massive case of bulletproof glass that dwarfs the small painting, the same elegant woman who has captivated generations of art lovers regards them with her inscrutable smile. Painted at the height of the Italian Renaissance, this fascinating portrait of a woman has attracted attention for centuries. Poems and songs have been written, essays and scholarly works composed, about an oil painting that measures less than 2 feet by 3 feet. Even in our contemporary world awash in digital images, the power of Da Vinci's portrait continues to transcend time. Legends have grown up around the picture. For instance, that the Mona Lisa's eyes follow you around the room. Another legend suggests that the painting on display is no longer the genuine Mona Lisa. What is it about this painting that has elevated it, not simply to the height of a masterpiece, but to the symbolic pinnacle of Western art? How can a work of art become so valuable that it is seen as priceless? What gives the Mona Lisa its power over people from different centuries and cultures? Although many people have spoken of the air of mystery that surrounds the picture of the woman with the haunting smile, on first viewing, it's common to find the picture a disappointment. The glass makes it difficult to see, and what we see is not exactly what Leonardo painted. The art historian Kenneth Clark described the Mona Lisa as the submarine goddess of the Louvre, a phrase that accurately reflects the dominant greenish tone of the painting, as well as its aquarium-like casing. Yet the earliest known description of the portrait raves about the warmth of the colors, the rosy nostrils and red lips, as well as the overall tone of the face that seemed not to be colored, but to be living flesh. Not only has the color faded, but also at some point in its history, the painting was made smaller, probably to fit into a frame, slicing off a pair of columns that once surrounded her. Now, when we look at how the painting's colors have changed over time, why is this? Because paint came in tubes around the year 1880. And before that, most artists made their own paint. And Leonardo da Vinci was an inventor, and he was known as constantly experimenting with the formulas or recipes that he used to make his own paints. Sometimes that had rather disastrous outcomes. It's hard to mix a paint like that, paint with it, and know that the color you see will still be the same color decades or centuries after you painted it. And that's what has happened to the Mona Lisa. Despite these ravages of time, it is possible to consider what makes the Mona Lisa a masterpiece. Whatever the type of art in question, the first step in learning to appreciate art is simply learning to look. This is more challenging than is usually believed. We often think of looking as a passive act, as in watching TV, clicking through pictures on a web page. But studying the visual arts requires more than empty viewing. Seeing can be active rather than passive. When primitive people looking at the world, they had to observe nature because they were hunters and gatherers. They depended on their eyes for survival. In their world, everything was natural and real. Very little was made by humans. We, on the other hand, live among literally millions of images, not only in books or on a screen, but also on almost everything we touch, from cereal boxes to printed t-shirts. As opposed to earlier periods, most of what we see and interact with is human-made. This constant bombardment by printed, video, and digital images has made us visually sophisticated, but can also leave our eyes numb. Artists often say that someone can really see, as if most people cannot. What an artist means by seeing is difficult to explain, but it is something like the total involved gaze of a newborn child, hungrily looking at everything, as it has never been seen before, not blinded by preconceptions. All of us like to see new things, but in the midst of our busy life, our seeing becomes stale, our eyes jaded. Art can renew the pleasure of seeing and help us feel more alive. Many people have had the exhilarating experience of leaving a museum, of noticing that the world outside looks much more interesting and beautiful. Let's return to the Mona Lisa and look at her carefully. First, the image is beautiful. Y'all, I hate that term, beautiful, because beautiful is a term that is subjective, depends on the viewer. It's not objective. And so when we start referring to works of art as being beautiful, we're really just saying it's subjective. It depends on who's looking at it. And I don't find that to be the case at all. But anyway, it is not simply that this is the portrait of an attractive woman. In fact, La Gioconda, Lisa del Giocondo, looks less than ideal to contemporary eyes. Although it is safe to assume that she was considered nice-looking by the standards of the 16th century, Leonardo did not give her face the same perfect beauty he gave to his drawings of angels, for example. But what makes the work of art famous is less the quality of the subject than the way it is interpreted by the artist. The Mona Lisa is beautifully and gracefully painted. Viewers are attracted to Da Vinci's work through the power of his skill as a draftsman and painter and his remarkable ability to bring his subject to life. The lifelike quality made from the Mona Lisa famous in its own time. According to the painter Giorgio Vasari, Leonardo's contemporary, altogether, this picture was painted in a manner to make the most confident artists, no matter who, despair and lose heart. In this painting of Leonardo's, there was a smile so pleasing that it seemed divine rather than human, and those who saw it were amazed to find that it was as alive as the original. As Vasari recognized, the Mona Lisa revolutionized the art of portraiture, adding movement and life in a way never seen before. Leonardo wrote in his notebooks, "Moderated light will add charm to every face." As anyone who's ever been on a date in a candlelit restaurant knows, Leonardo used oil paint to recreate this effect, which he called sfumato lighting, in Italian, the soft mist of a fountain. A soft light that dissolved edges and made details unclear. The Mona Lisa's eyes and mouth were bathed in sfumato light by Leonardo because he knew those are the two most important areas we look at on a face. Because they are left unclear, our imagination fills them in. The lips seem to move and give the Mona Lisa life. Leonardo's use of sfumato lighting is responsible for the legend surrounding this painting, her inscrutable smile and the eyes that look at you and then away. Leonardo generated a sense of movement in another way. Notice how the background does not line up on either side of the Mona Lisa's shoulders. This was intentional. Leonardo wanted to create the illusion that his subject is shifting her shoulder while we are looking at her. Leonardo understood how people see perhaps better than anyone who had ever lived, and he used this knowledge in subtle ways to create the illusion that his Mona Lisa was a real person. In fact, this is how viewers have always responded to her. Great art reveals the spirit of the age that produced it. Therefore, we need to know when and who made a work of art, so we begin to consider how this affected its form. So this when and how is called historical context. The grace and beauty of Leonardo's Mona Lisa, for example, reflects the value placed on these qualities during the Italian Renaissance. She also illustrates a highly prized attribute of aloofness, what the Italians called sprezzatura, a kind of aristocratic refinement and calm. The life of Leonardo da Vinci represents many other Renaissance values as well. Leonardo was an independent thinker, a scientific observer of nature, an imaginative inventor, and delightful conversationalist, as well as a talented artist. He filled many notebooks with his observations, drawings, poems, and philosophical theories. Above all, he exemplifies a crucial Renaissance idea credited with giving birth to the modern age, individualism. And these are pages from his notebooks that he kept. Renaissance thinkers conceived of human beings as potentially godlike creatures with immense physical, intellectual, and creative powers. Part of the mystique of Leonardo's art is that it was done by one of the first individuals to be considered a creative genius in the modern sense. No one can really be sure why Leonardo painted this portrait of 24-year-old Lisa del Giocondo, the wife of an important Florentine merchant. At the same time, when the artist was refusing paid commissions for more notable persons. We do know that Leonardo worked on the Mona Lisa for decades and never considered it finished. Because he reworked the image over and over, carrying it with him on his travels, the painting must have exerted the same endless fascination over the artist as it has over its viewers. Leonardo died of a stroke in France, the guest of King Francis I, who moved his mother and sisters out of a chateau so that Da Vinci could take up residence there. So the Mona Lisa became part of the royal art collection. That is how it came to be in the Louvre Museum in Paris, and why it eventually became identified not only as a part of Italian culture, but French culture as well. Western cultures are not the only ones to see works of art as priceless. The Japanese, for example, have an elaborate system of rating works of art and their value to national heritage. The most valuable artwork are designed as Japanese national treasures, while other significant works of art are categorized as important cultural properties. Because of their historical and aesthetic importance, national treasures, ranging from huge statues and painted screens to fragile decorated boxes and ceramic vessels, such as teacups, cannot be sold or taken out of the country. In Japan, even people, such as the most famous and accomplished living artists, can be given the official title of national treasure. One of the works of art designated as a national treasure is the wooden statue of the Amida Buddha, the Buddha of the West, carved by the sculptor Giotto in the 11th century. The statue is part of an entire sculptured environment, a grouping of many gilded wooden figures that decorate the central hall of a Buddhist temple, designated for an aristocratic family of the period. Because of the great age and the high quality of the design and carving, all of the figures in the sculptural group qualify as national treasures, which are considered as valuable to the Japanese heritage as the Statue of Liberty is to the Americans. Even if we know little about Buddhism, we can be impressed by the elaborate carving and huge scale of the sculptural group. Just a few feet inside the tall central doors, one comes face to face with the towering Amida Buddha on his lotus flower throne. Nearly 12 feet high, covered with gold leaf, he is surrounded by dozens of music-making angels that hang on the walls. One is also impressed by the